Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the Iran nuclear deal to spite Barack Obama. That's the opinion of the former British ambassador to the United States. And this news has come from the latest leak of Kim Darroch's diplomatic cables. In this one, he told the Foreign Office in London that President Trump appeared to be abandoning the nuclear deal for personality reasons because the pact had been agreed by his predecessor, Obama. He described the decision as an act of diplomatic vandalism and said the administration didn't seem to have a strategy after withdrawing. We can speak to Peter Mathews. He's a professor of political science at Cyprus College and joins us from Los Angeles. Peter, good to see you. I don't suppose anybody is going to be surprised with the contents of this latest leak, are they?
I don't think so, because we knew what, the ambassador is supposed to tell the truth to the government. That's what ambassador is for. And he called it like it was. He said this is what he saw in D.C. when he was there as the British ambassador. And it certainly made some people angry, obviously, President Trump as well as some other folks. And there's repercussions from that's going on right now.
It would be more interesting, possibly. So give us your take on this and what the European allies of the United States may be thinking about the future strategy. Kim Darroch saying that it didn't appear because he had called the State Department a number of times to try to get a steer on what Washington's policy was going to be after withdrawing, and surmising that actually there wasn't one. So how are the European allies supposed to deal with the nuclear agreement when the United States is making unilateral decisions that it doesn't agree with?
Very, very difficult, especially with our allies who are so close to us. And when the U.S. makes unilateral decisions, it throws everyone off. And the fact is, the Europeans were happy with, and so was Russia and China, with the nuclear deal, the JCPOA, as was most of the world. And yet President Trump is the only one that said it's not adequate. You need to withdraw from it. And he precipitously did that. And now the ambassador said he did it because of despite President Obama. But going back to the actual deal itself, it seemed like most of the world, and certainly the P5+1 nations, were satisfied that Iran was going to comply, and Iran was complying with this part of the requirement. United Nations, IAEA, said Iran was allowing inspectors to come in there and check on their nuclear production of material, which was limited considerably under the deal, and would have kept Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon for at least 10 to 20 years, or 10 to 15 years. And that was a good deal, because that way you could work out through trade and technology. Iran may give up its need to get one if it became more secure with integration of the international community. But when you put these kind of strictures on Iran, it's very counterproductive, and the allies are very concerned and upset about what happened with the U.S. withdrawing out unilaterally from that agreement.
Peter, do you think Iran's current strategy might also be counterproductive, this incrementally going back on certain elements of the deal? How is that helping? These are relatively, at the moment, small issues. How can they be seen as a threat to the West? Some people in the West are saying it's basically blackmail from Iran.
Yes, that's what they're going to say, and yet Iran is reacting the way it thinks that it should to make a point. I'm not saying it should do this. It could be counterproductive, but Iran is saying that the European countries are being restricted in being able to trade with Iran, by the U.S. Strictures, and therefore Iran is trying to send a signal. And that's a real problem for both sides and for the world at large, because we want to reduce the tensions and ensure that Iran comes back with a good security situation, and yet will be a non-nuclear weapon state. And it's not going that direction right now with the escalation of these tensions. And it's really back to the President of the United States' responsibility to come back and negotiate this and bring it back. I think he should reinstate the JCPOA that President Obama so painstakingly negotiated, which was working quite well. And Iran was happy with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you're talking in an ideal scenario. In reality, how do you think that this is going to play out? Is there actually even going to be any sort of conclusion to it?
Only if the United States takes a step toward bringing back, as I said, the original JCPOA, or moving in that direction. Right now, Iran is suffering under sanctions that the United States imposed, and the United States has actually punished other countries from being able to trade or buy Iranian oil, complicating the United States' relations with other countries as well, as not just with Iran, but with other countries that are allies. And so ideally, yeah, ideals do count. If you don't work toward ideals, the reality will never become a reality that it should become. So it's difficult to see how it's going to play out, unless this is de-escalated and the U.S. takes the lead, because the U.S. withdrew from the agreement, excuse me. The U.S. withdrew. It needs to take the first step toward ameliorating and straightening out that situation so we can all go forward in a much more secure world, especially with the United States and Iran. and the rest of the world in Iran, too.
Peter, you know how much we always appreciate your analyses. Thank you very much indeed once again. Peter Mathews speaking to us from LA.